Welcome, Steve. Welcome to this edition of Your Healthy Home Show. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Been traveling a little, getting ready for Memorial Day weekend cookout.
Oh, oh to me, not only having family, but to be able to provide and cook and just sit around the picnic table, or if you're doing it at home, sitting on the deck or in the backyard, it's one of the nicest times.
It sure is. So the thing that we want to talk about today, Joe, is I've heard debates back and forth, first of all, about charcoal grilling versus propane grilling, and one from the point of view of health reasons, and which one is healthier for you, and also which one is safer. And at this time of year, that's what we want to kind of go over, some of the things that we want to make sure that people are safe. They're bringing the grills out for the first time this year, let's say.
Right.
So I thought it would be good to have a little quiz. See how good your grilling
And it's
tips are.
This quiz it's interesting, Steve, that you say that, because when we talk about grilling, and the topic today was grilling, it wasn't until I began doing the research that I realized how complacent, how much I took for granted.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us feel the same way. We just go out there and we think it's just a push of a button, and
it's true.
And yeah. So go ahead. Let's hear this.
So a grill should be cleaned and checked for general maintenance every 2 years. This is a safety quiz from a website called Delish, DELISH.com. And it says, is it true or false that it should be cleaned at least, maintained every 2 years?
Every 2 years, I think, is obviously, yeah, I believe it's false.
That is false. According to, so we're going to put that here. According to what they say, it's false because you really need to clean the grill at least twice a year.
See, now I would have gotten that wrong, because I'm thinking start of the season. It's been idle for quite a few months. Spiders, insects, cobwebs, but you're saying twice a year. So
yep, and make sure that watch the rust, because if you're using a gas grill and you've got that unit, the element, then that gets rusty. When you go to turn it on, the gas can't come out. And so now if you haven't cleaned it and maintained it or replaced that element when it gets too rusty, that's when these gas fires, they'll explode. They'll get a buildup of gas, and you're trying to light it, and all of a sudden you light it and it'll flame up.
There's been so many reports and stories, Steve, about a flame going out or some obstruction, as you just described, and having that gas, that propane is heavier than air, and it sits at the base of the tank, and then one attempts to relight it, but now there's an excess. And there was a story about Hannah Storm. She was a ESPN reporter. I mean, severely burned. So accidents happen.
And then when you're using charcoal, I've seen people make this mistake where they've got the charcoal going and they want to add more coals and they want to get the fire going again, so they put more coals on top and they add more lighter fluid. That is the worst thing you can do, because those bottom coals can get up to 1,000 degrees. And when you're adding more lighter fluid, that you're going to get a flashback.
Wow.
So what they recommend you do if you're charcoal and you need more, what you do is you get a coffee can and you put some of the charcoal in, and now add your lighter fluid into that can. Let them soak for a minute, and now take long tongs and add them to the fire. They won't flame up that way.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It makes absolute sense.
So anyhow, okay, the next question that they had was, the lid should always be open when lighting a gas grill. True or false?
True.
That's true. You never want to have it closed. You always want to have it open. Gasoline can be used to help start regular charcoal briquettes. I can't even believe people. Okay, true or false, Joe?
False.
Yeah, you never use gasoline. Well, first of all, your hamburger's not going to taste very good.
I was just thinking that, if you like the smell of gas, well, maybe that's a new ingredient or herb or spice. But yeah, absolutely not. Just a thought. And then having it be highly flammable.
Right. That's
There's no
crazy.
telling.
Okay, so when lighting a gas grill, you should always start the burner on high.
Hmm. Um, Gee, I would say yes. And that's because that's what I do.
The correct answer is true. The proper sequence for starting a grill is: one, open the lid, turn on the gas supply, which most of us don't remember to shut the gas off
Right,
at the tank.
right.
That should never be, because if you have a hole in your line, that's under pressure. You could not be around, and all that gas could be leaking out and getting someone sick.
Right, right.
Okay, turn the on, and then light the ignition after you turn the burner to high. So that is correct. Um, let's see. One way to put out flare-ups on a charcoal grill is to spread out the coals. Is that true or false?
One way to
Charcoal grill, here's what happens. You put these nice juicy steaks, these ribeyes, they got a lot of fat. The drippings go down onto the charcoal. They flare up and they start flaming, and your meat starts burning.
I got it. So do you want to spread those coals out?
Is that true or false?
I would say that's true.
Okay, to put out flare-ups, either raise the grill that the food is on or spread the coals out evenly. If you must douse the flames with a light spurt of water, first remove the food from the grill. You don't want to spray the food.
That's true. But isn't it funny how sometimes these two collide, and we're trying to treat the fire and we forget about the food. So.
Yep. So, okay, it's okay to add lighter fluid to hot coals if the fire gets low. True or false?
Steve, I'm not sure about that one. I would say it's true.
It says false. Never add lighter fluid to coals that are already hot or warm. And do what I say. Go in the coffee can. You never want to add more lighter fluid because you're going to get a flare up.
Makes sense.
And let's see. Always keep vent closed while cooking on a charcoal grill. True or false?
See,
you know that little vent they have on the charcoal?
Yeah, well, air, oxygen. A flame needs oxygen. So why would you want that closed?
So you want to have some of it open, unless you're in fact trying to smoke the food, which we're going to get into in a minute.
Okay.
If you want to smoke the food, sometimes you close it all down and let it. That way, the fire in a charcoal grill or wood grill, you're keeping the coals down and low, which allows a slower temperature. So you want to, for the most part, when cooking on a grill, you want to have, on a charcoal grill, you want to have some air coming in.
Makes sense.
Because the fire needs it.
Sounds like you're the charcoal expert.
No,
I don't have a charcoal grill. I think as a kid I had one. Years ago we had
one. We're going to get into that. Which way is healthier? Which way is safer? And they both have their faults. And I think both of them, you need to be careful with both. From a health point of view and also from a safety point of view. So one of the things that it says you can do, which I don't know about this, trimming fat from meat can help prevent flare-ups.
Well, I mean, if we're talking fat being probably the leading cause of grease, right? So less grease, less chances of that catching on fire.
I know. But you buy a ribeye so it has that marble fat in it because that's what makes the flavor when you're cooking it. Some meats, if you cut too much of the fat off, the flavor in cooking it dries out.
Right, right.
And we haven't talked about fish too. Cooking fish on the grill, because poultry, meat, and fish are the things that can cause you a health issue if you cook them too much on a grill. So we're going to get into that, but one of the things to do with grilling fish is to always keep the skin on face down. So if you're cooking fillets, leave the skin on, because the skin has the natural oils in the fish. It'll keep the fish from getting dried out.
Interesting.
And then when you serve it, sometimes you can actually get that skin nice and crispy. It's actually good. Yeah. Good nutrients in the skin.
Yep. I'm getting hungry.
Okay. A gas grill propane tank can never be too full. True or false?
Can never be too full. I've read about not having an empty one nearby, but too full. Um, I think it's true.
Okay, what they're saying is pretty interesting. It says, do not force too much propane into an LP cylinder. By law, a 20-pound cylinder should be filled only to 80% of capacity. So that means around 16 pounds of LP in that propane.
So that makes total sense. So, but the idea is for the most part, we're doing that trade up factor in regards to bringing a tank back to the store, never bringing a tank into the store, and you're trading for a new tank. Now, if you have a large tank, I'm sure there are places you can go and have your tank filled.
Yeah.
But generally, it's someone who's licensed or certified or trained to do
The,
this.
the reason they want that 20% empty is because it allows for expansion.
Yeah.
Gas expands when it gets warm, so that's why they want it not
Makes
totally
sense.
full, so you don't blow up.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
And more home fires result from gas grills than from charcoal grills.
Yes.
What do you think? True or
Yes.
false?
True. True. Actually, I have a number here, Steve. In the last 4 to 5 years, there's been a report of total fires of at least, I think it was 8,000, roughly, caused by just outside grilling. And out of that 8,000, it was just over 7,000 caused by gas, and roughly 1,400 caused by charcoal. So
That's
I would say five times more.
That's what it says here. Although gas grills are used roughly 1.5 times as often as charcoal grills. So 3 people use charcoal, one or two would use,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
So even though propane is used more, they're involved in 5 times as many fires.
Interesting. You know what I saw here, Steve? It was the number one cause of a fire, whether it's charcoal or gas, is not paying attention to the
Right.
grill and walking away and leaving the grill unattended or being distracted. And
Yeah,
it was
because a lot of times you want to socialize and so whoever's cooking. Another thing too, Joe, is try to keep the children away. We wouldn't never have them under our oven,
right.
but outside it's a different thing, and that it should never be that kids should be in the cooking area.
Or pets.
Make sure that your grill is placed on a safe level area. Look out for overhanging tree branches. And if you got a grill on a wood deck, understand that there's a risk of fire. If there's tree branches, or even if it gets too hot.
Yeah.
There's been local cases where we've seen house fires because of grilling on the deck.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
The Fire Protection Agency, they had an interesting point, and they were saying clearly that grill should be placed 10 feet from any structure or anything for that matter. And Steve, I'll be honest with you, my grill was probably, I'm going to say, within 2 to 3 feet away from my house. And as I said earlier, before we started the show, we have another propane tank that sources our inside kitchen stove. And that was probably 2 to 3 feet away from my grill. So, having reading the stories of house fires and I mean really disastrous type of fires, it's best to have this grill away from the house altogether.
And out of the house.
Out of the house, yeah, right.
Some people don't understand that charcoal cooked inside will set off carbon monoxide, and then you won't smell it, and it'll kill you. So yeah, grilling in a well-ventilated area. Not in a garage if it's raining.
Right.
Some people get creative, but that can be very dangerous. Some of the thing too, let's talk about if you have a fire on the grill, the very first thing you should do is close the grill and shut off all air to that charcoal grill. And same thing with propane. If you try to smother it, if you don't give it oxygen, the flames will go out.
Right.
Allow the coals to burn out completely. Let the ashes cool for 48 hours and then dispose of them. So if you have to dispose of coals before they're completely cooled. Remove them individually, one at a time, with the long-handled tongs, and carefully bury them in a can of sand or a bucket of water. Never pour them into a bucket of water, because if you do, the steam that would come off that water could burn you. So you got to be careful, how you do that. Also, you want to make sure to store your charcoal in a dry place, because damp charcoal in the basement, you pull it up, it's damp, it's not going to light as easily.
Right. Absolutely. And then what do you end up doing? You end up dousing it more with fluid. So yeah, that makes total sense.
So now, Joe, we've gone through some of the safety things. And by the way, when you're outside grilling, there's probably more concern with cancer and skin cancer. So you want to make sure to protect yourself with some type of sun protection, because that is, people are more concerned sometimes about the grill. They forget to put on the sunscreen.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. Again, some of these things we take for granted. We're outdoors. You're talking about, a few weeks ago we were talking about insects, skin, bug repellents, but you're right with the sun. Steve, I wanted to bring up, we're at the beginning of the season, and we're entering our holiday weekend, and there's so many things going on between planning the foods. So this is a time to go out and inspect the grill. Your grill, in most cases, has been off all winter. In some cases, the grills these days are so big that you can't bring them into the house or the garage or the shed. So they're out there, and maybe you do cover it, maybe you don't. But we talked about this, and we talked about leading cause of fire in some areas are spiders, insects crawling up, getting into these little orifices where that propane should travel. And then the flex tube that leads from your grill to the tank, I mean, it's made out of rubber material that, for some of us, like myself, I've had my grill for over 10 years.
Right.
And I've never changed that flex hose, which now I'm actually afraid to go start up my grill because a hairline crack could cause a leak.
A lot of these grills, if they're well-made grills, you can buy the replacement elements and those hoses. There's a kit. Then you just buy it for your size, and you just, take the other one out and put a new one in. It's not very difficult at all. Even I can do it.
But it's something that we just don't think of.
Right.
It's amazing. We look at that grill outside, and maybe part of the feeling is it's outside.
Right.
It's outside. It's not going to hurt me. It's
no big
outside.
Deal.
It's no big deal.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the health risk about char broiling, flame broiled, and gas grilling food. Honestly, Joe, I got to preface all this by saying there's nothing better than a piece of like a steak or a hamburger that's cooked on an outside fire, whether it's charcoal or gas. And I think that both have their case. I think fish tastes better on charcoal than on gas. I think that grilled vegetables taste better on charcoal. But if everybody has their preference. Is there one healthier than another? Not really, because both can be unhealthy. It goes down to, again, moderation. How much meat are you actually eating?
Right.
How long are you keeping? Generally, the longer you keep meat on a high temperature, the higher let me pronounce this right, heterocyclic amines, HCAs they're called.
Right.
That's one of the cancer-causing elements that are in charred meat.
Right.
And there's also these polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, the PAHs. And these chemicals are formed by putting food like meat, poultry, and fish over a grill, and or in a hot pan to sear them. And so we've got to be careful about, there's things we can do to limit that.
Right.
And so I know you've got some natural things that you had mentioned.
Yeah, and this is something I just recently learned about, Steve. And, we often talk about make sure that your food is cooked well. You don't want undercooked meat for all the other reasons, bacteria. but no one really talks about overcooking. So in
Right.
some cases, you think, well done is going to be really good for me. And from what you just explained, these chemicals that are released once a meat, it doesn't even have to be a grill, it can be inside your home in terms of the
Right.
stove. But once they're brought up to a higher temperature, these toxins and these chemicals are now released.
And a lot of cooks, what they want to do is they want to sear that meat with a high temp to keep the juices in. Well, on a grill, you know, your meat, and there's different theories. People say now it's healthier if you were to pre-cook your meat for a few minutes in the oven, or even that some are saying, a minute to 90 seconds in the microwave. I don't know about that, but
Mm,
so I guess if it's an option. But I think cooking in the oven for a few minutes to warm that meat before you get it out on the grill, then it's spending less time on that grill, and but yet you're going to cook all the way through.
right, right,
The
right,
other thing, Joe, is marinades. Marinades can reduce these heterocyclic amines,
right.
these cancer-causing chemicals. They can reduce them by 75, 85% just by adding a marinade,
And it adds flavor.
and it adds flavor.
Yeah,
So when you use marinades, you want them based in an olive oil or a high heat oil like avocado oil,
right.
because the high heat oils don't allow these heterocyclic amines to form
Right.
as easily.
Right, right.
So
So yeah, so I took some of the information that you just talked about, and I rolled them up into some basic tips. Now again, this is avoiding or minimizing the risk of cancer. And by the way, this what we're talking about came out of a Kansas State University, and that's where this was discovered, or talked about. But then they bring a point, and you're exactly what you're saying is true. Marinades such as basil, mint, rosemary, thyme, oregano, and sage.
oregano, yep, yep.
Oregano, sorry. And these marinades will reduce HCA formation dramatically and also adds flavor. These herbal antioxidants reduce the formation of these radicals, bad stuff, when the meat is heated.
And not only that, Joe, if you're putting sage on your grill,
Yeah.
it keeps the mosquitoes away too. So
Great.
it's a natural way to keep
It's a bonus.
bugs away.
It's a bonus.
So yeah, using herbs that are readily available not only enhances the flavor of the meats, but it will reduce these what are called HCAs.
Interesting. So I want to bring up one other point. At the beginning of this, you started with how often you should maintain or clean your grill. And you said twice. Well, the first tip to what you're talking about now is keeping your grill clean. That grease, with whatever you cook, whether it's meat, steak, fish, if you're not cleaning your grill, that grease settles at the bottom.
Hmm.
And then that grease, every time you cook, is reheated, which is now releasing those toxins back into that
Right.
environment. So keeping your grill clean is not only from a fire safe perspective, but it's also keeping your food healthy. The second tip was, trim excess fat, because now they're feeling that fat. I know you're saying flavor, but that fat is going to heat up and release those toxins a lot faster
Well,
than
it's
your meat.
because the fat will drip on the fire and cause flare-ups, and the flare-ups is that flame broiled. Some
Right.
people like that flavor, and here's the thing, Joe, is having a nice steak and having this a little bit of chard on the outside, and this flavor. If you do it once or twice a year and a small portion in moderation,
Right.
I don't see a problem. But if
Right.
you were grilling consistently
Every day.
every day, every
Right.
week,
And some of us do. It's easier. It's easier
and
sometimes to keep outside that smells out of your house
it's
or
it's better if you do cook like that to allow longer time. And people who have a grill, sometimes what I will do is I'll put one side on low, and the other side I'll even won't even have it on.
right.
And I'll move my more tender stuff that's going to cook quicker, like vegetables, off to the side that isn't even on.
Right. Right.
Close the cover down, and they'll grill with no heat, just the heat from the one side. One, you're conserving energy. You're not wasting gas.
Right.
You're also protecting flare-up, because if you allow more time to cook, and cook at a 325 degrees or under, you're not going to have as many flare-ups, and your meat's going to cook slower. It actually is going to be a lot more tender,
The quality is
and
there. Yeah.
and the quality, but it takes longer.
Yeah.
But it is a healthier way.
This
There should be more on your grill. There should be 2/3 of your grill should be filled with vegetables,
interesting.
1/3 with meat. So if you've got 6 or 8 people, eating, the majority of your grill should be vegetable, because those vegetables the bad that you're getting can be offset by the good that you're eating.
Right.
So
Makes sense. So yeah, for those of us who eat vegetables, I've been to plenty of cookouts where all you see is hamburgers, linguiça, French fries, things of that nature.
Got to sneak something like an olive or lettuce or something, right?
So this is great, and again, this is perfect timing, Steve, because this is when it's the start of the season, and we've been through a very cold winter. Now, if you've been one of those folks who have already started your grill, and it seems like it's working fine, I still recommend to do what Steve's talking about, to do a full inspection and a full cleaning. Steve, I opened up my grill this morning. First of all, I saw rust. You talked about that earlier. I looked inside, and by the way, it smelled so good. I looked inside. There were cobwebs all around. But this is normal. This is a normal grill. Don't think because you didn't maintain it last year well enough that this is the problem. It's been sitting, and it's a dark environment, like you said earlier, where spiders and other creatures may want to climb in, rodents. So take it apart. Do a visual inspection. Clean it. And from what I understand from the National Protection Fire Agency, read your instructional manual from the manufacturer. There are things that make grills different from one to the other, even lighting it up accordingly. And then, as you talked about earlier, Steve, I think it makes sense. These manufacturers have these kits that you can order that makes it very easy for you to replace parts. And very inexpensive rather than going out and buying a new grill.
So 2 things that I want to finalize on this is that marinades act like a barrier between your meat and the carcinogens. And the American Institute for Cancer Research says that marinating meat for at least 30 minutes can reduce the formation of HCAs, and the type of marinade might even be a factor.
Wow.
It's saying that they did a study, researchers did a study that a steak cooked in a Caribbean marinade had a 88% drop in HCAs.
Amazing.
While a herb marinade accounted for a 72% drop, and a southwestern mixture had a 57% drop in bad compounds. So that the other thing too, Joe, that we wanted to mention that is very important is that people watch the grill after the cookout's over. And everybody's eating, and now the kids get a little freer, and that grill's still hot.
Right.
So you almost need to, warn people that this area, have your table, have your seating area, have everything away from the grill, and don't make it the focal point of the event.
Makes sense. Makes absolute sense. Steve, I think this is, again, timing is everything. This is a great topic. I don't know if we still have time for...
Well, I do want to mention one thing.
Okay.
The one thing we didn't say in all of this, and I'm going to say that the Healthy Home van carries fire extinguishers. There should be a multi-purpose fire extinguisher somewhere near your grill.
Absolutely.
If you've got one in the house, bring it out. Make sure it's charged.
Yeah.
If you don't have one, they're cheap enough. Then just think if you had a small, handy fire extinguisher and you had a flare up that you could not control, if you didn't have that, it could be disaster.
Absolutely. And I pulled a quick top 10, and Steve, your point was right on. The first thing is be concerned with fire, have a fire extinguisher nearby, and know how to use it. And then in that same category, you know what? You may not have a fire, but you might accidentally burn, or a child comes up, puts their hand on the grill. Know how to treat a skin burn.
Right.
And some of us don't have the necessary things, within, 30 seconds away that we could, address these. The second one, and we talked about this in previous shows, food safety. From the time that meat or whatever you're cooking comes out of the refrigerator, bacteria begins to grow. So,
Right.
keep it cool or keep it hot. One or the
Yeah.
other. Sometimes we like to bring the food out and let it sit there, and as that 5-10 minutes, we're waiting for people to arrive. Leave it in the fridge for as long as
Right.
you can. Third item, read, fully understand how to use your um, uh, grill. Smoke can be just as
Oh
bad as
yeah.
inhaling. Some of us want to stand
Absolutely.
there and the wind's blowing this way, Steve, right? How many times have you been there? It's like, wait a minute, what's going on
Yeah.
here? And your guest wouldn't like that either. Charcoal safety, you did a great job in explaining that, because that's something I very rarely use. But I know the flavor is better, or sometimes better, with certain foods. So charcoal safety, keep in mind. Grease, we talked about that. Location,
I think people who use propane grills think they're safer because they're not dealing with charcoal,
right?
and because they think they're safer, I think that's the problem, because there are 5 times more accidents with a propane grill than a charcoal. So um, people just need to be aware.
Yeah, yeah. And then grease. Don't let the grease build up.
Right.
And you talked about that. Cleaning. Location. 10 feet away. 10 feet away, not only from your house, but anything that could be ignitable.
Yep.
Another tank. Or
And I don't know about you, Joe. If I parboiled vegetables or in water, I'm going to lose nutrients. So to me, grilling vegetables, to me, if it's done in a lower heat, not high heat, is healthier for you because a lot of those nutrients are staying
right.
more in the,
So true.
especially if you don't cook them, overcook them. They're
Right.
staying more in the vegetables. So
So true. And just the last two items to wrap up. Gas safety, Steve. That was a great recommendation. Not only once a year, and some of us sometimes don't even get that first cleaning, but twice a year. So inspect, everyone. And you talked about cancer, which I feel that's something that I learned today. Overcooked foods. We often think under is the bad thing.
right.
Overcooked in what you're talking about, these chemicals. And lastly, everyone, not everyone, but for some of us, we like to enjoy that beer while we're cooking. And this was clearly stated. Alcohol in cooking in the fire. Wait a little while after the cooking's done. Enjoy your beer. So
Okay.
some tips, but
All right.
there's a good
Well, have a good
good review.
weekend.
Enjoy your grilling.